So I'm actually an immigrant woman, which is not reflected, I don't think, in how I speak, because I obviously don't have an accent from the land of my birth. But I am an immigrant. I came to Canada when I was 5 years old in 1966. We left Kenya at that time because of the unrest that was growing there between the ruling British population and the indigenous people of that country. I am of Indian ancestry, and so my family had been in East Africa for decades. And then in 1984, with my mom's help, I bought a home in the Mayfield neighbourhood of the west end of the city. Yeah, and I've been there ever since.
You're not in Jasper Place anymore?
Never was in Jasper Place.
Well, your address is very close to the boundaries of Jasper
Yes,
Place.
very close.
That's a reference.
I think that, I don't know, like I know that some of those, like Jasper Place was a community of its own at one time. Mm-hmm. So Effie lived in in Glenora, mm-hmm. right? Her dad had built that home, and so she was telling me a little bit about that community. And in fact, her dad came over to help my husband replace some tile in our bathroom, and so he was telling Carrie about that neighborhood, Mayfield, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And how when he first moved to Edmonton, that was all swamp. So it was like infill land, and I think there was an airport there, the famous Wap May, for whom Mayfield is named.
Yeah.
He was a pilot, I think a bush pilot, flew up to the north quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And so, that's the community that we lived in. Mayfield was the first ever developer-built neighborhood in Edmonton.
So you've been living at your current residence?
Since 1984, so almost 40 years, 38 years, right? Yeah.
And you've raised a family in this neighborhood?
Yeah. Okay. My boys were born at that house. Yeah. Okay. Born at the Correia, brought back to that house. Yeah.
Did they attend school in that neighborhood?
They attended Holy Cross High School, that was a K-9 school, and it was just in Kenora, just kind of a kitty corner neighborhood, just a little bit south and east, because that was a French immersion school, and I wanted them to have another language, right? Yeah.
So, over the 40 years you've lived in this neighborhood almost, how has the neighborhood developed from what you've seen?
I think it's changed. It's changed quite a bit, right? The neighborhood has. When I first came in there, most of my neighbors had been there many years, right? The original purchasers of those homes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so a lot of them have passed on now.
What kind of neighbors did you have then?
Oh, they were all. The neighborhood was also very monotone, like not a lot of diversity, if you will, right? Lots of Eastern European families, I would say. Because there was, a couple of Ukrainian families down the block from me. Mike behind me, he was Polish. She was, I think, British extraction. Ralph was a war veteran, and his wife was Dutch. He had met her in Europe in the Second World War. Lots of people that had bought those homes when they were first built and developed them. That was the beginning when we first came there. Lovely people, very good sense of neighborhood, which I loved about the neighborhood. I think because we had that sound wall that goes around Mayfield Road on the west and north of us, there's only 3 or 4 entrances into the neighborhood. And so it really gave it, and I think it's smaller too, in land area, and so the number of homes was smaller. And so you really had a sense of community, like a small town. And it also had quite a vibrant community league So there's always things that were going on. And of course there are 2 schools there, primary schools, from both Edmonton School Board and Edmonton Catholic School Board. They're just, stone's throw away.
So did you meet any discrimination from any of your neighbors? Or did you?
I had my mom had a really interesting conversation with my neighbor, and he was talking about, they're Dutch and part of the Christian Reformed Church. And at that time, the school was just being built or expanded in, now it's not High Park, it's the next neighborhood over, which I can't remember the name of right now. Anyway, his children were there. He's a little distressed because as the school was expanding, they were having children from outside their community attending, lots of different races of children attending. And he was quite worried because his eldest daughter, might connect with somebody from outside their race. So he was having this conversation with my mom. So for context, for people that don't know, my husband is a WASP, right? He's of Scottish and English ancestry. And so he was saying, he was very worried for his daughter because, mixed marriages, they don't always work.
That's what
he was saying to Mom. Yeah, and I thought, okay, Sid, you're obviously not paying attention to who you're talking to, right?
Did you have any neighbors who were Indigenous?
Absolutely, there were some families in the neighborhood. My sons played hockey. The older one played hockey longer, and so he had a couple of young Native brothers that were part of his hockey team. And I remember, and because I was part of the community league, I met some of the other families. And in fact, the fellow that was the financial officer for Enoch Nation, his family, I think he was estranged from his wife. His ex-wife and children lived in Mayfield across from the community league, and those kids all played hockey.